the idea of today's conversation is to talk about how to channel our inner children into the world. Obviously, there's an inner child in all of us that doesn't go anywhere. That inner child is with you from the day you're born until the day you die. And that inner child is the version of you that is excited to be alive, that is excited to go out into the world and to create and explore and just channel that joy that, doesn't have any limits to it. But we go into the adult world and we kind of lose some of that spark. We lose that connection to the inner child. And so my first question to you, Jackie, is life can be super stressful. And when that happens, what's an easy way to calm our inner world and restore our inner joy to return to that inner child?
This is a great question and such a great time of year to be presenting this conversation about joy. And I'm in the More Joy community that Cindy Cohen has on LinkedIn. So we always are sharing joy with each other. And I have had a stressful fall at school. So I will tell you some ways to calm that is you have to especially leave work at work. So if you're in like a traditional kind of workplace, get home and try to leave it there. It can be very difficult. So some of the ways I reset when I come home is that might be take a hot bath, take a hot shower, do a meditation, just lay down and have calm, listen to some like soothing music, and then being able to maybe put on like a funny TV show or a funny program. For me, humor is a great way to get back into joy. And so being silly, I have two King Charles Cavalier dogs and they are silly. And so when I'm like getting down on the floor and playing with them as if I was a dog, because I think I'm actually part dog sometimes. And I will just chase them around the house and play with them for some time. And I don't have children, so this is what I do, with play. And it's a lot of fun and it's really silly. And so I think it's just finding a way to, even if you had a really bad day, and I've had some really hard weeks recently, it's like, just put it away and say, you know what? The day's over. Again, I'm not great at it every day. There's days I can't let it go and I really have to have a good cry and struggle a little bit and lean on my friends. But just to kind of put it away and then say, well, what are the things in my control that make me feel really good? And what could I do at home? Luckily, like I come back to a home place that feels so nice and so joyful. And now that it's like coming in the Christmas season, we have our decorations up and we have a little Christmas village. So it's just like joyful to put like the lights on and just feel like in the holiday spirit. And so that's how I'm trying to kind of reset after like a stressful day, is finding those kind of small moments of joy, because we all can make them happen. Like we don't have to wait for something to come to us. We can make that happen.
Yeah, it's almost like we need those mistletoe moments, but they're not for romance, they're for joy. And when we see those, we're like, oh, now we need to introduce some play. Now we need to introduce some humor, share a joke, or, watch something, do something, like little prompts. And maybe that's one way to, add those invitations for joy in the house. You leave something in every room. And when you see it every time you walk through that room, like, oh, I need to do something. I need to reset that energy. And as you said, going and playing with your dogs is one way to do that. And that's a funny way to both reset your energy and connect with something in someone in your living space. But what would you say to, as a teacher, you're communicating to a lot of younger versions of us, younger souls, when they get stressful, when you see someone that's stressful at school, what do you say to them? Even if, they don't realize that there's a cloud that's kind of following them. But when you recognize somebody that's stressful, do you tap them on the shoulder and you say, hey?
Well, I think, and I see this a lot in my school, it's very about competition. And that's like one thing I see in schools that really is failing our children, is that it's too much about competition and every child trying to like one up each other and compare. They don't see their own unique spark. They just compare themselves to others. So usually like when I see some of that, I teach seniors and college applications are through and like they're waiting on colleges, is that don't compare to other people. Just enjoy what you have to provide. in this space and who you are. And also, like, don't take life so seriously. Like, school's important, doing well is important. They want to get into good colleges and have a good job one day, and that's all important. But if you miss the moments where you're connecting with a friend, you're like laughing, something's going on in the school community that's really joyous, and you're missing out on it because you're so stressed out about school, about grades, about college, then you're kind of missing the whole point. Because even in those stressful moments at school, there are moments of community. There's moments that are just really special. We had this event last week where our dean puts on inclusive forums where people get to share personal things about themselves so we can get to know each other more. And this one was more about everyone having the opportunity to share. So there was like scenarios, and some were really serious and some were kind of silly. And we had to talk about, well, is this a petty thing or is it a problem? And
Mhm.
so the first scenario, which was posed by a faculty member, and so it's funny. It's funny because it's like the bane of our existence is coming to class, and the bell didn't ring yet. Chatting with your friends, then the bell rings. Oh, can I go to the bathroom now? And you're like, wait, you just been here for 5 minutes, like
Mhm.
chatting with your friends. Why don't you just do that then? So many of the students were like, oh, this is petty. And then the faculty's like, this is a problem. And it was funny. And we were all laughing. Like, it was like clearly a scenario and things that, maybe over time could become an issue if there's many students doing it and you feel like your class is just not in control at all. But it was silly and we got to all share something. And so those are the moments where you could just pause and say, we're having a moment in community and sharing about something, and we can all kind of like laugh about it. And so I think those are the reminders for young people, is that don't take yourself so seriously, live in the moment. When you're a teenager and you're like in college, those are some of the best years. They could be hard years, but some of the best years of your life.
Mhm.
You have like really strong friendships. The memories you make are ingrained in your memory, like they're so important. And so if we don't stay present in the moment, we're really missing a lot. And so, that's kind of what I would say to them. I did not like high school, so I probably don't want to remember a lot of it, but I wasn't very social and kind of kept to myself. I didn't live in the moment when I was in high school. I was very stressed out. So I didn't really have a lot of fond memories of high school. And that was, maybe I wish someone said that to me, like, hey, Jackie, live in the moment, just go do
Yeah.
something that's kind of fun and silly. But then I did that more in college. And so I took on a lot more of that presence and like really enjoying it with people. And of course, I have lots of great memories from that too.
I love that. And it's we all do this dissociation. We all try to kind of escape the present moment when we're not exactly where we want to be. And I think you made a really good example with the waiting for the bell to ring to do something that takes you out of the situation because you're not really happy to be in that situation. And sometimes we think to ourselves, especially now with the Christmas holidays and having to be around relatives that, different generations, we don't talk about the same interests. We don't share the same interests. So it can feel a little bit like a chore,
Mm.
but it's always an opportunity to learn from others. If you bring that curiosity back into the conversation, if you ask the person that's in front of you to share something that they're excited about, even if it's
Mhm.
not something that you are passionate about, that's a way to connect with others on a deeper level and kind of bring that inner child with you in the room and not think of life as being this series of chores and series of
Mhm.
responsibilities and punishment. So if I'm not on time, I'm going to get punished. If I don't know the lesson, I'm going to get punished. And it's usually we're missing the life lessons in the process of trying
Yeah,
to fit ourselves into specific standards.
that's so true. You learn more from your peers too. Like a lot of times, like in school, I feel like your biggest life lessons are not just necessarily in class and like the content that you're learning or skills, but it's from each other. Like, what are you learning from each other? And that's one thing I ask them at the end of the year. We go around and do like this, like sharing out, and I have them write on posters and they like share out about like the things they learned content wise, historical skills, all of that, being a student. But then I'm like, what did you learn from each other?
Mhm.
were there perspectives, were there funny moments, were there things that you picked up on that were really cool and interesting in presentations? And when they can note that, then that's kind of like the memory, right? It's like, I'm not going to remember everything I learned in history class, but I'm going to remember those people I spent a year with and the things they had to say or the funny things that they presented, or the creativity that they presented in like a project. So those are really great moments to try to capture, is asking them the questions about what do you learn from each other more than anything.
Yeah, and this could be applied in the workplace as well.
Yeah.
It's not just in school because when we go to work, we change jobs as part of our career path and we meet different people. And if we can always bring it back to what can we exchange now in the present moment, the current versions that we are, what can we teach one another? There's always this moment of co-creation that happens on a subconscious level sometimes, but because you've set that attitude for the day, that intention, today I'm going to share more of myself, or today I'm going to get to know somebody else, you are able to leave the stress zone and enter the more playful side of experiencing
Mhm.
life, because stress and play are happening at the same time. It's really your
Mm.
mindset that kind of moves you from one to the other. Because even in the most
Yeah.
stressful situations, you can still remember a joke, you can still have a dance, shake it off, and yeah, just shift the energy of the room.
Yeah, that's a great point, is shifting the mindset if you can't change the situation at hand at that time. Like what could I do to think about it differently and make it kind of silly or playful? Or be positive and say, well, it could be worse. It could be worse, right? So let me just have gratitude for it not being as bad as it could be. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Or reflect back onto moments when you were younger and you wanted to be exactly where you are right now as you're preparing for the next phase you want to reach, because we reach the top of the mountain and we think to ourselves, oh, there's another mountain over there, I can see it, I want to climb that one next. But
Yeah.
we give yourself the chance to actually enjoy the view where you are and get to know the environment of that top, because when you started the climb you didn't know what you're going to meet on top, but now that you've made it on top, who's there,
Mm.
let me see if I can make some
Mhm.
new friends today.
Yeah, that's great. It's great perspective.
Yeah. Well, stress is one of the aspects that kind of blocks our inner child. I think the other one is when life gets a little bit blah, which is usually what happens when we get into, a life of routines, which is something that
Mhm.
we keep talking about, habits and changing our lifestyle so we can optimize our time and bring more efficiency. But when it's very repetitive, we can lose that spark once again. So, what would be one quick way to reboot our imagination? As someone that has a lot of experience in capturing the attention of young people, and we all know that young people, their attention is everywhere. So, to be able to capture that attention, you have to use a lot of imagination. So, what are your tips?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great question right now because it's winter time here in New Jersey, so the weather is quite blah. Um, I think it's being spontaneous. So if you're in like a routine and you're kind of doing the same thing, and of course students too love routines. Most people, like some kind of routine because they feel some sense of security in that. Is just to switch something up that could be very small. That could be like, maybe I start, I'm just thinking about class and then I can apply something into my own life, like personal life. But it to start with like maybe a funny meme. Like I showed a TikTok the other day. I sometimes will be cool and like show TikToks in class. And we're doing sleeping and dreaming in my psychology class. And so I show this TikTok with a psychologist talking about how
Mhm.
we frame our sleep space. And so she, of course, talks about like Pavlov and conditioning and like the dog salivating. And it's like a really goofy short TikTok, but really it gets to the point of if you make your sleep space feel like stress, like I have anxiety, then you're not going to fall asleep, right? And then if you make it feel like peaceful and relaxing, then you can hopefully fall asleep better. So then I always like to share stories and get kind of personal with my students, and then they think I'm always like too sherry.
Or
So I'm like, so
sharing.
this is what I do. I had insomnia really bad when I was in high school and college. So now bed and sleeping is like my favorite thing in the whole world. I get super, super excited for it. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's bedtime. I'm so excited. So I tell them like I get this lavender spray and I spray it either like on myself or you could spray it on like a pillow. And then like I might play some like peaceful music, beforehand, and you're supposed to go to bed like at least 15 minutes before you want to fall asleep. I set my little sleep calculator about when you're going to get up, and then it tells you when you should go and fall asleep because it's how you get out of your sleep cycle stages. And so you should try to go to bed about 15 minutes before. I gave them like this whole breakdown of my sleep routine. And then I was like, and I love sleep and I get really good sleep now. And they're all looking at me like, oh my gosh, you are crazy. Like, what are you trying? You're just sharing all this information with us. And then I was telling them about states of consciousness and all the different states. And so I told them how I recently did the one state of consciousness we talk about is sensory deprivation. I was like, well, I've experienced that. You're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I went to this place called Float. It's really cool. You go into this chamber and it's super dark. There's like no sound, and you just lay in salt water because you're really buoyant. And you do that for like an hour and you're just laying there. And we're like, that sounds terrifying. I'm like, it is amazing. You should all try it. So I just like share funny stories with them, and it'll just be spontaneous to break up the lesson. And then like if I start class like that and I'm like, okay, now we're gonna get into like what we need to get done. It's just like it lightens the mood. It's a funny moment, or I'll have them like turn and talk to each other and share like funny stories too. So that's like one thing I do at school. If like things are just kind of like blah, we're in this like stressful time. It's like telling funny stories. Um, and then at home, like I just like to be creative. So I'm not much of like, I wrote a book. I consider myself an author and a podcaster, but I'm not really that great at like art, like drawing. But I do find it soothing, and it is something I want to dive more back into. And I find like creativity helps to break the blah. So if you're just like, I'm kind of stuck in this routine of the day, come home, either like bake, make something really yummy, maybe do something a little different for dinner. Like I always try to add a little flair of a special dessert, like maybe not every single night because, we're not going to eat like fancy desserts every night. But you're like, you know what? Let me just pick up something at the grocery store, and I'll surprise my husband and be like, oh, I got this like really yummy, decadent like cupcake. And it sounds so simple and silly, but those little tiny tweaks can add a little glimmer of something kind of spontaneous and special. And it breaks up like the monotony of like the same thing you do every day. And it just takes like one little tweak. Putting on some music on Alexa, and like especially like listening to something from when I was in high school or college, like in the 90s, and putting some music on and singing along to that. Or now it's Christmas time, so like putting Christmas music on and singing to that. And so, yeah, these little tweaks you can do. It's not very difficult, but it's just, even if you think like you're not going to get in that headspace, like sometimes like I write myself a little notification on my phone, like, oh, if I'm feeling a little like blah down,
Mhm.
it's like when I get home, I want to, draw a little bit, or I want to put on some music, or dance around again, play with my dogs in the kitchen, whatever that is. And give yourself a mental note that you might need a little pick me up if you've been having kind of a blah moment in your day.
That's great advice, especially what you said about sleep. You recognize it because sleep is one of the most essential kind of building blocks for your maintenance, for your routine. So the moment you get excited about something that seems blah
Yeah.
and monotonous and kind of boring, it's the moment when you get excited. You bring that childlike energy to it. How can I make this even more exciting? Because you mentioned the
Yeah.
lavender spray. It's almost like you have this ritual, but you are excited
Hmm.
about the ritual before the actual, routine, the actual habit. But that's yeah, that's a really
Yeah.
useful, practice that we can all apply to. And it doesn't matter what habit you pick. It can be dinner. Some people find making dinner blah because it's every single night I have to cook dinner, or going to the gym. Oh, every single day I have to go to the gym. But what if you focus on the routine that is before the actual habit,
Mm.
the ritual as it is?
Mhm.
What if you were to play your favorite song, then you create a specific choreography that is just between you and your inner child, and then you go and you
Yeah.
do that thing.
Yeah, I love
Like,
that. I do that too on my way to work. Like, I have a little bit of a commute, so I actually get very excited to be on my way to work, and then I get at work and I'm like, "Oh, it's work, work." I love my job, but, I'm
Remote.
with kids. But on my way to work, I'm like, "Well, I have a half hour." Instead of being like, "Oh, it's a half-hour commute, I might be in traffic." I'm like, "I get to listen to my favorite podcast," or I have some friends who left voice notes, and I normally don't listen to them in the evening because if I'm watching a show or a movie with my husband, I try not to be, like, on my phone listening to
Mhm.
something and being super distracting. So I'm like, "Oh, I have these voice notes from a friend that I can listen to on my Bluetooth on the way to, school," and then that, like, fills me up with joy because I get to, like, share in, like, information with them or whatever that is. So I, like, really look forward to going into my car, which sounds, again, blah, but it's those moments of I get to listen to something I really enjoy and be very present in it because I'm sitting in my car driving and I might be in traffic and I know it's going to be at least a half hour. So I'm dedicating to being very present in whatever I'm listening to too. So that's a great way to view it. It's the ritual before the routine. I like
Mm.
that.
Yeah, I used to commute an hour to work and back. And I knew in that 1 hour, I'm going to read a book. I'm going to listen to a podcast. I'm going to catch up with messages like you mentioned.
Mm,
I'm going to write my own things, or I'm just going to, enjoy a new album, explore something while I'm in that space where somebody else is taking care of me because I don't need to drive the
mm,
bus. I can just
mhm, mhm.
relax and enjoy whatever, inspiration I'm being guided to use. And I think working from home, a lot of people have lost a little bit of that. And
Yeah.
I think we're comparing, now that we've earned some of that time because, commute takes away from our time, sometimes our energy. But in
Mm,
that time wasn't lost. We just
yeah.
learned about the world in different ways. But I think now we're losing a little bit of the curiosity when we're at home, working from home. And
True.
it's useful to remind ourselves in the new year, how can we book half an hour at the start of the day and half an hour at the end of the day, which is our commute time for
Yeah.
exploration?
Build
That's my
in, like, the
yeah,
commute time at school or at, home. So it's like,
yeah.
if I, were to transfer into, like, say, a virtual job at some point, I had that half hour from, like, 7:15 to 7:45. How do I still build that into the morning? Maybe it is the same time depending on when, like, the workday
Mhm.
needs to start, or what if, like, I'm kinda, like, working for myself and I'm like, "Well, I can start at 9." Well, I still wanna maybe build that in at, like, 8 or something like
Yeah.
that. So I think it's just being disciplined, and that doesn't sound like inner child or joy, but when
Yeah.
you're an adult and you have a lot of things on your plate, we kinda almost have to be disciplined in how we use our time to then have moments of joy. So it's like building in the time and kinda sticking to that and saying, "This is gonna be a joyful time before I have to, like, be super hyper focused on whatever work I'm doing." And then that becomes, like, again, the new routine. And excitement is key, like, getting excited for something, and if there are things, of course, we're not excited about everything we do, but, like, what is that
Mm.
transition state that we can get excited about before we have to go and be like, then I'm going to be really focused on doing some work or getting a job done. There's going to be something part of your day that you can get excited about.
Yeah, 100%. And also, if you think about self-discipline that isn't attached to the act, but to the energy, your
Mm,
self-discipline to showing up for your inner child for 30 minutes every single day, that shifts your attitude towards that time, your anticipation, because you're thinking, I get to spend time in a playful state, in a joyful state for 30 minutes, doesn't matter what the
mm,
activity is. You are building that stronger relationship with yourself, and I think that's precious, especially before you start the day and you give so much of yourself to other people because
that's so
we're all
true.
trying to help others. We're all co-creating with other people. And sometimes, our responsibilities require us to fully dedicate ourselves to other people to take care of them
Hmm.
in one way or another. And if we don't have that, even 5 minutes a day to ourselves, but imagine if we had
Hmm.
30 minutes in the morning to strengthen our relationship with ourselves. And you can call it inner child or you can call it you bonding with yourself. But I
Yeah.
think that self-discipline is not so strict, it's not so boring, it's not so blah, but it's yay.
Yes, I know. It is important when you're an adult, and a lot of us have to pour a lot of energy, whether that's we have families. Like, I don't have children, but then I go to a place where I have about 100 people in my space
Mhm,
throughout the
100%.
day with, like, kids and faculty, and it's a lot of energy. It's a lot of attention. It's a lot of me listening.
Mhm.
And that's just part of who I am and part of what I do. But then it's like, if I don't put in the time to fill my cup or like give myself self-care, then I start to not be good at that part. And like then I'm not
Yeah.
there for other people. So like even a half hour. So again, I got to commute, so I'm kind of lucky that I can do that. But if I didn't have the commute, I would be disciplined to build that in the morning time. So I had something to myself before I had to like give to other people.
Love that. And now we've kind of covered what happens when life is stressful, what happens when life goes blah. And the last point is what happens when life gets
Mm,
scary? And I think this is very relevant with everything that is going on in the world, with the cost of living, with the wars, and all these
yeah.
ridiculous news that we're being shown every single day that, they're just kind of fueling the fear that we're feeling if we were to, listen to it. What's one way that we can ground our energy so that we can access our inner adventure and the person that maybe isn't just inspired for themselves, but also wants to inspire other people? Because our energy can influence the room, a room filled with hundreds of people when we are grounded.
Yeah. Well, going back into that, like the connection with other people, I have found because this whole fall has been quite frightening, with everything happening in the world and just the energy personally, like in my own life, and I've seen in other people's lives. Like I feel like I've lived a parallel life to so many friends of mine because we've been going through huge transitions, energy wise, life wise, whatever that looks like. So I think it's when life is scary to remind yourself you're not doing this alone. And even if you feel like you don't have a lot of people in your physical space, maybe you're a single person who lives on their own, maybe you don't have a lot of family or you don't have close friends nearby that you could physically see. I've created some of my strongest friendships through online groups, and they have been my huge support. So I've had a rough, couple of weeks and just through the fall with just energy and whatnot and just some challenges. And I've called upon friends who, whether it's just a quick text message or like I just need to talk to someone on my ride home after work, even if it's just a vent or get another perspective, and it just changes the energy, like completely changes the energy. And then I feel like, oh, even in scary times, even when there's a lot on my plate or there's a lot going on where I feel like I'm needing to stand up and use my voice and I'm feeling a little vulnerable, I have a lot of people who support me and I am not afraid to ask for help. So there's a lot of vulnerability in that. So when you are feeling that, it's go back to the place that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say to someone, I just really need you to listen to me. I am having a hard time, or there's a lot going on in the world and it's hard for me to process. And, I just really want to talk to someone. And I also found once you get into like maybe a space of healing from that, is then sharing positive messages. So I've been sharing a lot of positive messages, particularly through October into November, when there's been a lot of polarity and division, particularly around like the war, with Israel and Gaza, and just a lot of division in general in politics here in America. We always have that. And it's like, well, what is my one piece that I can do to maybe help ground myself and then also hopefully maybe help ground others is just by sending out very like messages about peace and love and hope and that we're all in community together. You're not alone. And there is hope that we can have peace. There is hope that we are raising our consciousness and people will want to like unite and not be divided so much. So, and those who don't get it and they want to stay divided, that's okay. It's not their time. The messages are not for everyone at a time. They might get it later down the road. And so when you're sending out messages to your community, to people in your family, to people online, I think it has to come from a place of authenticity of I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm
Mhm.
not trying to influence. I'm not trying to change people's mindset. Just it's like a gift. It's just an energy, it's a light. Take it if you want to. If you don't and you're not ready for it or you're really in that battle, that's okay. It's okay. So it's like you just have to give it. And then it feels really good. Like it feels good to yourself to know that I'm in a place of peace and I'm trying to give peace. Doesn't mean that everything in the world is shifting and changing right now. There's still a lot going on and you're not denying it. That's the thing. There's no denial of like, you're not like, la la la, everything's great. I'm just ignoring this that's going on in the news. No, it's not that. It's just I'm going to come from a different angle and give at least some kind of light to people when there's a lot of darkness. And I think it's happening more and more. I'm seeing more people doing this.
Mm.
And that's uplifting because I think a lot of people are getting really tired of the division and tired of the darkness and they're like I can't do that anymore. Like I want to be in that place of peace. So I am seeing more people come online with those messages. So then you feel like you're in community too. So I think that's a really great way to ground yourself, but ask for help. People are there. There's tons of beautiful people in community online. You can find your space. I mean, LinkedIn, it's like there's like angels everywhere.
Absolutely. And it's also useful to remember that when life gets scary and you get scared, when you're feeling that fear, maybe it's your inner child that's feeling scared and it just needs you to remember and remind yourself, I am here for you, to kind of say to yourself that you're here for yourself. And in
Yeah.
moments when you are afraid or you see people around you afraid, to act from that place of leading. Even if your voice is shaky, record the video, write the blog, share it, and listen to your voice as you hear it kind of strengthening as you're delivering
Mm,
that message, because there is a powerful kind of spiritual warrior in all of us. There's a powerful teacher and a powerful mentor in all of us. And sometimes when we feel alone, it's an invitation for us to discover our strength. When we feel
mm.
scared, it's an invitation for us to discover our courage that is within us. If we're capable of feeling the fear, we're also capable of feeling the bravery. It's the polarity.
So
And
true.
so
Yes.
when life gets scary, remember that you're not alone, just as you said, but think of it as an invitation to act from that place of love, from that
Yeah.
place of rising above the situation and doing something about it. Because, a lot of people say that the opposite of depression is expression. And when we feel the
Mhm.
fear, it's very easy for us to be pulled back into that state of depression and anxiety and fear. But the moment you express yourself, you open yourself, you connect with people that are aligned. That's how we connected. We were
Yes,
sharing
exactly.
messages and we found each other through kind of shining our light and being
Yeah.
brave, and saying, I am not going to be defined by the darkness. I carry my own light and I'm going to share it with the
Mhm.
world. I don't know who it's going to reach, but I know that it's going to reach someone.
Yeah, and I think another thing just with calming yourself, because I have many times in my life have, dealt with anxiety and had difficult times calming myself, but what I found recently is deep, deep breathing, like really doing that, like taking a deep breath, like doing the like breathe in, count to 4, hold it, 4 and release 4 and doing that a few times and it's amazing how your body will actually calm down because a lot of that energy is in your nervous system and you're
Mm,
in that sympathetic nervous system. You're all fight or flight, and if you don't do anything to break out of it, the fear just builds up, the anxiety builds up, which then eventually like actually hurts your body. And so just some deep breathing, doing something that's calming, going on a walk, going for a run, taking a hot shower, whatever that is to kind of like calm your nervous system. Because if you do something to just first go to the biology, if you're like, I don't know how to deal with my emotions right now, but I know my nervous system
yeah.
is way up. So do something physically to calm the nervous system. And then that usually will also help the emotional state. It's also okay to be a human and be a little reactive. So something big happens, something really stressful happens, and you
Mhm.
go into fear mode or you go into like anxious mode. That is okay. That is a normal human reaction. And I think we need to give ourselves grace that we aren't like robots and we're not also like these like super light angels, like that are just like everything's going to be fine. Um, but it's how quick we repair. That's that's the key. Like, so if you are going to be in a state of anxiety or like I'm scared, okay, that's your natural fight or flight. You're trying to assess the situation. Do I really need to stay fearful? Do I really need to stay scared? Do I need to stay in this anxious state? And then once you realize I have support, I am safe, because it's all part of our evolution. Like we have that response because when we were like early hominids, like we had to like, deal with wild animals, right? We had to like be up all night because we don't know if like an animal would come into our cave
Yeah.
or whatever
Mhm.
that may be. So it's built into our system to have this incredible response with the fight or flight, but we have it now to so many situations that we are actually safe, but our body's still reacting like we're not safe. So we have to recognize it and then we have to do something about it. So the cognitive has to come in and say, wait a second, let me assess the situation. Do I really need to be in fear right now? Do I need to be in high anxiety? How can I actually like calm down and then just take a break, take a breather? Um, and so it's really, and it's getting off of social media. Like you got to get off of the technology is great for this connection, but when especially like big things happen like war, violence, and it's all over social media, right? And young people can get sucked into it. If
Mhm.
you're constantly viewing this over and over and over again, you're just like feeding your nervous system and you're keeping it in that sympathetic state that's very aroused. Um, and it's not going to be helpful to your cognitive, your emotional state. So it's great to be in the know. We need to know what's going on in the world. We need to like, hold light for others going through really difficult times, but get off of social media too and take a break. Go in nature. Ugh, nature is so healing. Whenever I take a walk in nature, um, it cleanses everything. It's just a really easy way to calm down.
Yeah. Take a break from humans and go spend some time in nature.
Yes.
No, I love
That's
that.
so true.
I love that because it's like we're like pendulums and we move around and they're all connected. The dark and the light, they're connected. It's a circle or infinity, whatever you want to describe it as, but we can't stay down for too long. We're always going to go up, but
Mm,
when we're up, we can't stay up as well. We have to go down, and whether it's sideways or up and down, it's always connected. So in those moments where you recognize the fear, you're being taken away from your center, just
mm,
few steps to return back to the center so that you can be closer to that state of joy, because we don't want to promote that false positivity that we're
mm,
happy all the time. That's not
yeah,
natural. It's okay to feel our emotions, and fear is a natural response, anger is a natural response. It's just recognizing how much is this beneficial to you to stay in that state of fear
yeah,
24/7. It's not. Same with
yeah,
anger, same with sadness, and possibly even with joy and happiness, to be always in that state of joy and happiness, especially like
mm,
empaths of the world and teachers. They feel this responsibility to be the brave face, to be the source of
mm.
joy for others. But that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself to
It
always
is.
be the one to uplift the room and allow yourself to do things for yourself and allow yourself to unmask. You don't have
Yeah.
to be strong all the time. You don't have to be joyful all the time. And I think that's a beautiful way to kind of end channeling our inner child. Just go out in nature and forget about
Mm,
who you want to be or who society is telling you to be. Just go and be and see where the adventure takes you. Let nature take care of you and show you the way. Because
oh,
I just find
wonderful.
myself in the middle of that garden and a butterfly
Yeah.
comes and it's like,
Yeah.
follow me, I'll show you the way.
Nature will just play with you. Like if you when it's not freezing cold in the wintertime, but if some people can handle it, go and take your shoes off and put your feet in the grass, run around in the grass, in the dirt, whatever that is, and then just like zero in on maybe like an animal, an insect, or just wind you see passing through the trees. And when you do that, it's like you're in awe, like you're a child, and it's so simple. But because we're so busy and we're so manic all over the place, we tend to forget that nature can just show us so much beauty and awe. And going back to kind of just that last part about you can't be like in the joy all the time, that could be detrimental too. Is that term of like toxic positivity. And it sounds like people are being too critical of being optimistic, but there is something about if you're just super high energy positive all the time, another thing that could do is you're not relatable. Like people can't relate to you, and then people think like you're almost putting them down because they are human and they are going through a struggle. And we have to also be there for people and saying, like, yeah, you know what? That sucks. Like, I get it. Like, that's a hard time. And you know what? It's where you're at right now. And it feels pretty crappy right now, but it's not going to be like that forever. And like you will be able to be on the other side of it. And I'm gonna help you. Like I'm here. Like if you need to like just cry, right? Or just vent. Crying actually feels really joyful. So if you need a good cry and you just get it all out of you, afterwards you're like, oh, I'm so cleansed. That was great. I'm so glad I cried.
There's a release that happens,
It is. It
100%.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And once again, when you recognize these emotions, if you want to kind of strengthen yourself in the moments where you're more vulnerable or, more fearful, more just blah, just think of yourself as the protector of your inner child and give that space for your inner child to fully express yourself, whether you need to cry, whether you need to punch the pillow, not humans, just punch the pillow. Just think of yourself as the protector that's giving you that safe space for you to have a healthy expression of whatever you're
Mm,
feeling and give yourself permission to just feel it and let
yeah.
it go, because a lot of people are holding on to these big regrets or heavy feelings of disappointment, and it's kind of destroying them from within because they're unable to let it go.
Mm,
Just it's an emotion, it's a state of your inner world that you got to experience. It's part of the spectrum. What else
mhm.
is there? Think of your inner world as a rainbow, and sometimes it's going to
Mhm.
be a little bit of the blue shades where it's a little bit more sad, but blue is also the color of the sky. So, there's hope every time we see it in a
Yes.
way. You can always
Great
shift.
analogy. Yeah. That's so true. And that's like the beauty of being human is that you have these emotions and when you go through it, it's flow. Like you're just in flow in that emotion, and then it's going to move past you. And then you're on to the next thing and on to the next side. So it's like instead of ignoring it or pushing it aside or saying, I don't want to deal with it, which usually will fester and cause other
Mhm.
problems, if you just let it be and be like, you know what, I'm just going to cry right now because I
Yeah.
just need to cry because things are really hard and I'm just going to do it. Like literally like a 5 minute thing of that. And you're like, oh, I'm good. I'm good now.
Yeah, and if you are saying to yourself, "Oh, I don't have time for this right now," think about the priorities that you're putting in front of managing your own emotions. What is it that's more important to you? Kind of coming back to yourself. Is it deadlines? Is it emails? Is it other people? Because that's where you're going to recognize where your energy is being kind of siphoned, not
Yeah.
necessarily with malicious intent, but when we're able to strengthen these energetic boundaries, we can return to ourselves a lot faster and to return to that state of joy and balance, so we can be
Yeah.
more balanced for the people that we want to work with, we want to co-create with, and channel our inner children with, because there's this magic that happens when we're with coworkers, when we're with friends and family, when we're happy. It's almost like we get to have these spontaneous moments where it's our inner children, it's not us, our inner children are being
Mm,
channeled and we're being goofy and we're being silly. And when we're stressed, when we're feeling the burdens of the world, we cannot channel those to create these meaningful moments. So
yeah.
think about what's more important in your mind right now in your set of priorities that's taking you away from yourself, because everything that you're prioritizing over yourself is draining your cup, and you cannot pour from an empty cup, like we said, and
Yeah.
cannot show up authentically. And the moment you share your authentic self, it's the moment you share your inner child. And it's beautiful when we watch people be happy to be alive, even if there's a
Mm,
spectrum of emotions.
I love that. What a beautiful message. You're doing such beautiful work in the world. These are really great conversations. I think they're going to help a lot of people, and this is the holidays. is a joyful time, but it can be a really hard time too.
Mm.
So I think this is a really great project that you're doing, especially this time of year. So I just love coming on your show, Stella.
Thank you, Jackie. I could say the same about your work. And I love that I got to create 2 episodes, 2 beautiful conversations with you. I'm excited about what next year is bringing. And if you were to put, one wish into the universe, what would
Mm.
it be for 2024?
Well, I have big ideas and big visions, and I know your whole theme here is big ideas, is that I really want to start. Um, I have my book out and I really want to start speaking more about like my ideas for education and kind of using the book as that catalyst for that. I also have a second book that I want to work on where I want to really reach out to children and interview them and get their ideas about education, like really truthfully, what do you see in it?
Mm.
And from all different education spaces, not necessarily all from the public school system or private school system, but different age groups, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different countries, different, again, educational systems, to see also if there's a pattern of what they see and what they want. Because I think if we follow the children and what they see and their truth, then we're going to be able to really do something to change and make it better because it's for them. And so that's kind of my next vision. But I'm going to keep building these relationships like I have with you and collaborating because I think it's all about our collaborations. We're not doing this by ourselves.
Mhm. I couldn't agree more. And I think this was the best way to end our conversation. This holiday season and next year, go and spend more time with younger people and see what their ideas are and what they're channeling into the world because they are the future. So, by
Mhm.
definition, they already know what they find valuable, what to follow, the trends. They're not only setting the trends, they're recognizing the trends. So, spend more time with younger people so that you can see where the future is. It's not
Yeah.
to say that the older generations don't have anything to teach us. It's more to do with let's stop devaluing younger
Mhm.
people because of their age, because our souls, we don't know how old our souls are.
That's so true. Right? They could be much older than you. When you talk to that kid and you're like, wow, he's like my grandpa. They just have such wisdom and they're
Wise
like 3 years
souls,
old.
yeah.
I
And
love those
especially if
kids.
we're here to channel our inner children a little bit more, be more spontaneous and more playful, we can learn a lot more from the children. And
Yeah.
if we were to stop trying to fit them in our expectations of how they should behave and allow them to show us how we should behave and how we could behave in a way
True.
that's a little bit more balanced,
Yeah, I think so.
2024 might just be the
I
most
think so.
joyful year.
I think there's gonna be a lot of joy in 2024, and I'm not just saying that because it's the new year and people are like, "It's a new year, yay." I know so many people said that at the top of 2020. But I really do feel this energy of newness and
Mhm.
excitement and a lot of, like, what people have been working on the last couple of years, building to, like, this moment of actually, like, seeing all the light coming from that work. So I think there's gonna be a lot of hope in 2024.
Ah, beautiful. Thanks for joining the Big Talk, Jackie, and I wish you a magical end of the year. And I'm sure that we're going to be collaborating as soon as the first month. That's my mission
You
to the
too.
universe. It's been set out.
Yes, I think there'll be much more that we'll be doing together in the next year. So have a lovely holiday season and happy new year to everyone. And just be in a state of joy and lean on each other. This is all about a community of friendship. And there's tons of people out there that just would love to be there for you and talk with you.
Absolutely. Now go out and channel your inner child. They've been waiting for you to return to them.
Yeah.